It's on the fortnight, which means we get to chat to the great Kate Herbert, and super producer Nick Tolhurst is in the other hot seat to chat to Kate as well. Good morning, Kate.
Good morning.
How are you going?
I'm well. I'm close to the end of the season of my play, so I'm sort of a bit tired.
Yes, can imagine.
How long has that got to go, Kate?
Tonight and tomorrow night. Well, tonight and 4 p.m. tomorrow, but tonight there are seats. Tomorrow is at the moment full unless people walk up and get a cancellation, which is possible. But yeah, there's seats tonight at 7:30. But we've done well. We had the live stream last night, Nick, which people were able to watch in America and Indonesia and the UK, and also from home because some people aren't able to come out. So that was great. We've had some lovely response to that.
Well, I can recommend people to go. I went and saw it earlier in the season, and it's actually a wonderful, less than an hour. It's a great thing. La Mama, you can go have dinner beforehand or dinner afterwards. It's a really fun, clever, and very touching play. So well done.
Thank you, Nick. There's also the on-screen, the recording last night, I just remembered, is going to be on-screen, La Mama on-screen, which I was going to talk about now anyway.
Well, talk about that now.
I don't know, in 2 weeks, ours goes on to on-screen. But Norm Ahmed, it's Straight White Male is the name for the two plays that have been on together, which are on the La Mama on-screen at the moment, and that's where I was watching them. The Norm Ahmed, if anyone recalls, it's Alex Buzo's 30-minute play, 35 or so minute play that was staged at La Mama, the original La Mama, not the original one that burnt down, in 1968. And perhaps Nick and others may know that it was raided by the police for obscenity. And in fact, the actors or actor was arrested, and it happened in Brisbane as well. Now, it's the last line of the play that was controversial, and what I wanted to talk about, because I was looking at this play and thinking about what is now controversial, and 50 or more years later, 50-something years later, what is controversial, and is that last line controversial anymore? And it was for obscenity, so the F word was the one that appears to have been why the show was raided, obscenity in a public place. But now what is accompanying the F word is a racial slur, which seems not to have been the problem at the time, but I suspect would be the problem now rather than the swear word. What do you think?
Do you have an opinion on this one?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the racial swearing's become part of the vernacular. I think
it's on Netflix. It's on everything.
It's everything. Yeah. And yeah, definitely the racial slur.
It is, but it's always about context, though, isn't it? And
yes.
And then again the thorny question of actually who owns the slur, because minority groups and marginalised groups especially have been very good at taking up slurs against them and using them as brands, as rebranding them, if you like, or giving them new meaning, and that's their right. So, can a straight white male playwright and performer make a racial slur in a context that's acceptable? I don't know the answer to that one.
And is the slur there to? Well, I believe in this play, in Norm Ahmed, the second play by Nick Parsons, who's produced and directed these two. The second play is his play, Radha and Ryan, which is another white man, Indian background student woman this time. But can the slur or the racist commentary inform the debate about racism when it is used by in this instance, the straight white male? Because the whole point was to raise the issue of racism, of male violence, and if you represent a person who embodies those kinds of, shall we call them flaws,
yes,
or issues, and you don't use the language that they use, then you're not actually arguing the point. You need to see the person in the context and with their own language in order to have some sort of judgment and opinion on it. But to strip all of that out and make the whole thing anodyne, and to take the I was going to say colour, but there's a whole other argument about issues and controversy about colour, but I'm talking about texture, I suppose, in language and character and nuance.
You lose your story, really. You lose, yes. And so you end up not offending, and I'm with Philippa there. You can't. We don't do that anymore, and for good reason. But you actually do lose the ability to present things in their contexts, such as, of all sorts. It's a difficult one.
Yeah, and I think there are other things related to this that I was thinking about when I was watching this and, talking to other people and to you. The issues about people of colour on stage and people of colour being represented on stage. And for a long time, I was talking to one of my actors who wrote an article about this Norm Ahmed experience in '68, and she said at that time they couldn't find an Arabic actor to play Ahmed. So it was, in fact, someone of Indian background who was an actor here who played it. And these days, it's certainly much, much easier. I had a play with Vietnamese characters. It was about Vietnamese characters. And it was, honestly, I hunted high and low, finally found a woman who was a singer who could play the mother, and a boy who was not working anymore, who was Chinese background. Now it is easier. But 20 years ago...
Well, there's the other question there is... it's just like colonising art or cultures that aren't one's own. Are you as a white Australian woman entitled now to write a play with Vietnamese characters?
Yes, and here we go with this whole thing about does that mean when people talk about you cannot appropriate someone else's story and you can only write stories that are in your own world? Well, can I only write about myself? So I can't write about a lung transplant, even though I know about it through contact or close contact. Can I not write about anything but my own experience? How boring would my work be if I just wrote about my own life? I mean, it also denies an artist their creativity and the understanding that an artist or a writer must research, as must an actor, research an area in order to write about it. If you just write about yourself, it'll be the same thing over and over.
Yeah, which is often a case with an awful lot of literature that seems to be coming out, but leave that one alone. I think it's a situation that's very much in flux, and that I think it's bringing up issues that we need to address. And we're going through a period where we haven't sorted this out, and eventually I hope we do. But
we've got trigger warnings going all over the place. I had to give trigger warnings, and I said I'm not going to give trigger warnings about a swear word. But trigger warnings, there's a lovely article you may have read too about it mentions Judi Dench talking about trigger warnings. Do we tell everybody that everyone's dead at the end of King Lear? Is that what we need to start doing? Ray Fiennes chipped into the argument. So there's a lot going on, and that the play is judged often by, I've read reviews where people are judging a play or reviewing a play based on their own worldview, their gender politics, their politics in general, and their view of the world. And if it doesn't align with their own worldview, it's a bad play. Now, that isn't reviewing.
No, that's a whole other discussion about what does it mean to review, and can you review if you're... Yeah. Well, I think we are talking to one of the best reviewers, theatre reviewers in Melbourne, in Australia, Kate Herbert. We probably should wind it up here.
Yes.
Yes. What are you going to be seeing for the next fortnight?
Oh, I don't know. There's a few things. I'm a bit blinkered at the moment because of my show, but there's The Odd Couple next week. And that's the only big one in the next fortnight. But after that come a few other things. The Rising Festival starts, and
Woman in Black's coming up. Yeah.
Woman in Black, sorry, and a number of things upcoming, which I will endeavour to see and talk about.
Thanks very much, Kate. Thanks for taking time today.
Thanks, Philippa and Nick. Bye.
See you.
Bye. So, Nick, what are you up to in the next week?
I'm going to see the Margaret Sutherland